Hi folks, welcome to my 8-Bit Retro Journal. Today I'm going to do another video to celebrate the Mac from the 80s and 90s and participate in Marcintosh. Last week I spoke about the command shell scripting environment that I created, and today I'm going to talk about Cron Manager, which was a cron utility that I implemented on the Macintosh. And yes, I definitely spent a lot of time trying to create a Unix environment for the Macintosh, and there was a reason for that. When I got a Macintosh in sort of latter part of 1992, and the computer I had before that was a QL, which I had used for a few years before that, and I really liked its environment, but it was very limited. That's why I got a Mac. I mean, it was slow. It didn't have much support because the computer actually was discontinued in 1986, and so I moved on to the Mac, which had obviously huge support and great graphics and all those things, but its operating system was a little lacking. And of course, nowadays when we find something like that, let's say we don't, we're not happy with Windows, there's always Linux, right? And Linux is everywhere. But back in the early 90s, unless you were at school or you had a job that had a Unix access, you actually didn't have much Unix access. Luckily, at my work, we did have a Unix server, but I also had lots of friends that only worked in a world that had Macs or Windows. When I was moving to the Macintosh, I really wanted to add some of that functionality. And so the command shell was the obvious one because that's kind of the interface that the QL had. But I started exploring background tasks. And what they're called faceless background applications on the Macintosh, and they're just services or daemons demons or daemons, however you want to pronounce it, on Unix and Windows machines, and they're easy enough to write on the QL. In fact, I'm going to write one today just to demonstrate. But yeah, so it was a little frustrating to be on a computer that was more powerful and had more support, but also was limited in many ways that this simple machine wasn't. And again, if I didn't have a Unix machine at home, I had that, and I was moving to the Macintosh, and if that's all you have, then again it was a little bit frustrating. I also wanted to kind of point out this book that you see here, and it is a book on System 7 by the famous Don Crabb, and he actually reviewed both Cron Manager, Cron Manager more than Climate, and I'll show you what he said about it. It's on page 183. Here you go, without breaking the spine, hopefully. He's got a blurb on Cron Manager, and he says, in order to execute AppleScript or AppleScript applications in a timed manner, execute important system functions or open system documents when you want them to execute, you can use Power Agent, which is something he talked about in the page before, or an even simpler utility like Cron Manager. Here's how Cron Manager works. It's 11:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, and you've got give a big presentation in 2 hours. Fortunately, you've also got Cron Manager, a helpful little utility program for your Apple Macintosh from Orchard Software. Cron Manager automatically launched your presentation program an hour after you turned on your Mac this morning, reminding you to get cracking. As a result, you're flying high and ready to dazzle your boss. Cron Manager is one of those important utility programs that is so easy to use, so intuitive, so helpful that you wonder why Apple doesn't include it in System 7. Fortunately, since it only costs $26.95, you can afford it by it yourself. To use Cron Manager, you create file alias for the file application you want to open. That takes 2 seconds. Then you rename the alias to reflect the days and times you want those files and applications to open. That takes another 2 seconds. Put this in view. Then place the renamed alias into the Cron events folder. That gets installed when you install Cron Manager on your Mac. Another 2 seconds, and that's it. Now that's some serious System 7.5 modification with no sweat invested. And then it gives examples, which I'll give today. I'll demonstrate the app today. And then he also talks about Climate. He says you can also get Cron Manager with another clever utility program called Climate, which is a command line interface and scripting system that works parallel to AppleScript for those of you who feel the need to make your Macintosh work like a DOS machine. Yeah, so this I think came out in 1995 because a lot of the examples are in 1995. And let me put this Trying to zoom in the right way. Not yet. There we go. And it didn't actually help sell those products more, but certainly, someone like Don Crabb really appreciated that facility, and it was obvious because those utilities, command shells and crons, are useful even to this day. Now there were other cron utilities, but the cool thing with Cron Manager and why Don Crabb liked it was because it really utilized the interface of the Macintosh and didn't sort of try to just completely replicate what Unix does, which is you didn't have to have a cron tabs file. You could literally just use this interface of an alias, etc. But before we go to the Mac emulator, which is unfortunately all I have, to show you this, let me show you first how easy it is to create a faceless background application on the QL. So let's do that first. All right, so let's. I'm going to start this editor, QED, which is the text editor that I use. It's going to take a second or two. It's reading off the MDV. All right, so that actually doesn't look bad, so I think I'll leave it at that. Let me just adjust the camera just a smidge. There we go. All right, let's load in. What are we going to call it? MGV8. Yeah, let's just call it Cron. Why not? So here we're going to do an include stdio underscore. Again, QL uses the underscore and not the. All right, our main function, and we're going to have a couple of maybe previous and current, or last and next, which is going to represent the time. We're going to have to close the standard out window and then change the mode to 4. Okay, so we are going to capture the date, which is the function is called date, and then we're going to just have a while loop, while 1, and we're just going to say next equals date, and then just a simple if that says if, oops, I think my indentation is screwed up. Yeah, that goes better. So the if is going to go next minus last, if that's greater than 10. So let's say every 10 seconds, we are going to do, first of all, we're going to update last to equal next, and then we're going to we're just going to beep, which is a built-in function. I think you can just beep 10,000 1010. So every 10 seconds we're going to let off a beep, close everything, close everything. So yeah, so it's just a simple faceless background application that is it readable? Yeah, it's readable. That is going to every 10 seconds. It's going to check the date. There is a system pause call where you could pause for like a second or so that you didn't do this loop incessantly. But I've learned that on the QL, even an infinite loop doesn't really take up much time. So there's a way to optimize that if it feels like it's slowing down the system. But I'm going to leave it this way because I don't think this is going to hit the system up very much at all. This is not going to. Plus, you can also prioritize the tasks. So you're going to see if there's been 10 seconds elapsed, update the last variable, and then beep, and do this infinitely. Yeah, there we go. So let's actually save that and quit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, I guess I can stay with So load up the next app is, I'm going to compile it and run it, and then show you how it impacts. I'm probably going to go to the command line. I'll run the compiler here, and then I'll exit the ICE, so this is the compiler. And when I do the linker, I'll exit ICE, so that because I want to run the Faces background application. I want to exec it. Whenever I double click something in ICE, it does an exec wait, which basically takes over the machine. Well, it won't give you the command shell again. So here we go. We're going to say mdv8 cron c -m for show everything and pause on errors. This should go pretty fast. Hopefully I didn't have any errors in there. Yeah, if you miss a semicolon, then you're unforgivable error, right? I think it'll show the main function with the M option. It'll show each function that it's finished parsing. So we'll see. It's not very long. What slows it down, of course, is the micro drives. Unfortunately, they are slow, and even the emulated ones are slow. So there's no. Oh, here it goes. All right, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to go to the command line, mode for it. So the next function is exec mdv5 code generator. And so here, as long as you remember what you're typing, this tends to be a little faster. Yeah, so here we're just going to say cron no command line. So this is going to generate an executable called cron. I think the first thing is which object file. The second thing is the file, the executable name, and the NC means no command. Usually the code generator linker is a little faster parser, because the parser has to do more work. All right, here we go, completed. I want to go back to ICE for a second, and I just wanted to. So ICE has this nice functionality where it tells you, okay, there's 74K free, 2 jobs running. I know that you can't see that menu, but I just have sort of remembered where that was. Isn't that funny? Okay, so mdv5, I should have cron. So if I say exec mdv5, cron, yep, it's running now, and you'll see that in about 5 or 6 seconds it's going to make a beep. Yep, and it's going to do that every 5 or 6 seconds. So I can go back into ICE, and let's see how much this cost. 65. So yeah, so 9K. It's not horrible, but you can see that it's running. It's not really slowing things down. I can now whenever you do file I/O, and this is true even on modern. I mean, if you ever seen a Windows 7 or 10 machine kind of freeze up, it's because it's hitting some critical resource, and it's kind of killing everything. But yeah, you can see whenever you hear a beep, you can. And so this is actually shows you that that was executable, and yeah, it's beeping. And in fact, if we want, there's nothing that keeps us from running it a second time. And we can have it do multiple beeps. Let's see that. Yeah, so now it's beeping multiple times a second. And I could run it again. I'm going to wait till the next one beeps. Now, here we go. See how that goes. See if we can have multiple cascading beeps. Be cool if you got beep beep. Oh, they might have actually been in sync. Yeah, I think they were. Yeah, they are. So you can hear it, so I'm going to just run it at this point. And again, they're all little 9K apps. They're not slowing things down too much. Again, it's just waiting to load it in. Here we go. Let's see if we get a beep beep. So there's 3 of them running, but 2 of them are sort of on top of each other. So yeah, you can hear the sort of echoey beep. But if I go back into ICE, notice that my system isn't slowed down very much at all. Now it's lost some memory. I'm going to presume, yeah. So it's 36, 6 jobs. So yeah, it lost about 40K. Yeah, so they're about 38K. Yeah, they're about 9K each. But you can see that things are still running. In any case, that's the nice thing about having a multitasking operating system. You can do that. So so I had explored running jobs in parallel, concurrently, multitasking on the QL, and I was exploring the same feature on the Mac because I wanted to see if I could learn how to do it better than what I did with my command shell, and then eventually I wanted to see if I could actually modify the kernel. And so what I will do next week is show you the hack that I did that created the product CPU doubler that actually did hack the kernel to add a schedule to it. But that's for next week. This week I just want to show you Cron Manager. So let's go on the on my desktop computer using the mini VMAC emulator to show you Cron Manager. All right, here we go. So on the Macintosh, to show you Cron Manager, it's a control panel. So you can see there. Here's the Cron events folder, and currently it's empty. The Cron events folder actually lives in the system folder, where many of the Macintosh folders, like the startup items folder, live. And this in the Apple menu is just an alias to it. But if you go into Cron control panel, you'll see that there's Cron Manager. And again, it's currently turned off. And when you boot up with it off, it actually starts up the faceless background application, the service or the daemon, whatever you want to call it. And it just then has it running but not doing anything. So you can turn it on. You don't have to reboot the computer. There's also ways to abort the control, the Cron Manager control panel, so to not install it at all. Because sometimes if you have system conflicts on the Mac, you want to be able to do that. So you can set the keys, and then of course, also if you want to have the Cron Manager folder in the Apple menu, you can select that. A little bit of a help menu that kind of gives you the basic idea of what the alias should be. There's weekday, date, time, and repeat, and they're all optional, but you can't change the order. So you can't have date and then weekday. So you can do everything on a Wednesday, you can do everything on a particular time, you can repeat something every 30 minutes. There's also a designator for after startup. So yeah, weekdays are these. So I didn't do it. I should have maybe had somebody commented if you had a weekend flag, that would have been great, like Saturday, Sunday. You can do a date in that format, time, hour, a 24-hour clock. And then you could do after, every, and then minute, right? So you could boot up half an hour after the computer started, and then you can do something every 30 minutes after the first one, whether it's on a weekday or at startup, whatever. Right, so this says these are all optional entries basically, and so is these. Here we go. Just some examples, right? So at 1 p.m. on the 4th of July, every day at 9 a.m., Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 1 hour after restart, right? And then remember not to enter dates and times out of order. The character is a wildcard character, right? So you have the wildcard character, so you can say anytime in July. You can deactivate a cron by inserting a character and start of it, so maybe hashtag. You can use as many spaces as you need to make cron entries more readable. Also, cron entries are not case sensitive. You can place any character after the cron entry for commenting. Right, so you can add a comment that says, you could add here after the last one, 9 a.m. Anytime. You could actually add this line here if you wanted to. All right, so yeah, just a help feature. But so let's turn it on, and it doesn't find anything yet. But let's actually write a little script. Let's do it in here. Let's just say, is there a pause here? Pause 10? No. So let's go 10 for I equals 1 to 10. Print hello world, exclamation point. Oops, sorry. Next I 20 quit. Save reading.bass. All right, and then we can quit that. And then what we want to do is we want to select this and make an alias, which I think is right here. And then let's see if we want to have it *1. And then we open up the Cron events folder. We stick this in here and we wait. While we wait, let me go into projects. And you can see I have the command line interface, Cron Manager. This is CPU doubler. So I kind of went in order of how I worked on these. So let me close all this stuff. And you have, this is the code file. It still hasn't started it up yet. Oh, there it is. Hello world. See, it just started up. I went pretty fast, but so this will do it every minute. Okay, so you can see that there are 3 parts to this. There is control panel, which is what you saw, and the control panel and the init. Those are, I think I got samples of those, and they're basically all. So if you look at the disk, this file right here, and maybe I can let's do this. Utilities, res edit. So that's a program that'll allow you to look inside of the file. It wants to know what file, so you can go hard disk projects, Cron Manager, disk, Cron Manager, and this will open that up. And there he goes. Close this up again. And you can see here that you have, there's the init, and there's also the application is in here as well, because the whole thing is installed as a single. I forget how it puts it, but it has the init. So basically, it bundles all these things into one file. So the resource fork contains everything that's needed. Some of these are standards, but this is the control panel. So this must be the code for the actual application. And then the init has code for actually, you can see there's code here. And this, yeah, so this is the code for, that's probably the application. So that's, it's kind of cool with, different from Windows where you have usually a bunch of DLLs and other things. Here, everything gets sort of contained. So again, you have the control panel dev, which is not very interesting because all it really allows you to do is click a flag that tells the little applet to put an alias into the applet menu folder, and then it can turn itself on or off, send a signal to send it on or off. So the init is basically there to start the application up, right? So it's and this is not something I came up with. I found an example of how to do it, and then I just integrated mine into it. So most of this is probably not something that's unique in terms of this is a standard way of starting And so this is probably looking to see if you're, yeah, I think the is press is checking to see if the key combo is down, whether you should start the app up or not. Install me, check for launch. So this checks it. Install me is pressed. Yeah, I mean, it's been so long, I've kind of forgotten how to do most of this stuff. But I seem to recall, and this checks to see if it actually launched. And this is launch me. I see here it goes. Launch application, and you give it the information from the, I mean, it's launching from the resource fork, and then a launch error. So these are sort of kind of standard, kind of standard Mac things. The same goes with the, I mean, didn't open this up, but the same goes with this, right? So you have the control panel and some auxiliary and help stuff. I don't know what's in auxiliary. Oh, just toggle. Yeah. Just for setting all these things. So the more interesting part, of course, is the application. So, which is right here. So this is the faceless background application. This is what you see. You don't actually see it here, but I think if you run climate and you do what, you see it here, Cron Manager. And so even when, even if I turn this off, control panel, Cron Manager off, you'll still see it running, because it's running, but it's just not, it's deactivating itself, if that makes sense. Quit this as well. So yeah, let's look at the faceless background application. So what do we got here? All right, so this is do the cron events. Oh, these are your prototypes. Parse. So this does the parse, skip spaces, and it. So this does the cron events, and it goes and checks this data structures that tells you if something is undefined. So the way this parser works is it just fills in a data structure, a linked list of these data structures, and then Cron Manager goes through and sees which one of these is true to see when they're executed. Every time, it also checks to see if the Cron Manager folder has been updated, and if it has, then it reads in you. So you don't have to restart. And whenever you put something in the Cron Manager folder, it right away starts activating it. And so, yeah, so it's kind of trying to check to see is there a day, a date, a time, etc. And so if there is, then it goes into the more detailed of what that means. It's checking specifically. So it's trying to be as efficient as possible sitting in the background. But you can see again this idea of having a counter for some threshold and then calling wait next event. I don't think it impacted the system very much, and I think that coming up with a good threshold was important, pause threshold. But again, unfortunately, it wasn't it had to go through this event loop before it would send out a get next event multiple times to this event loop. Remove cron list, read cron list. So this is where it, and then parse names. Yeah, this is where it goes and fills in the appropriate database or record structure, the repeat parameter. And all it's doing is setting the fields, right, that are being parse num. The fields that it's expecting in here. Right, it's just setting this. There's time. There's a date record structure, so it was kind of a much easier parse than climate. And so again, the rest is probably not something that I came up with, other than yes, you have another one. So this is the main loop of the. So it's going to basically. On null event, it's going to call wait next event. On null event, it's going to go in and do its stuff. And there are some defines that I must have been able to compile it differently depending on where it was included. Maybe this FBA file is being included in the control panel device. It's been, like I said, it's been a long time since I've done this. But it does get last minute. For minute equals last minute, minutes less than current minute. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what there's a last minute. So maybe, I guess whenever it comes back, if it's missed some time, it goes and makes sure that it's catching up and catching all of those. So it's keeping track of the last minute since it's been called. So that way, if there's for some reason, if it's paused out 3 or 4 minutes, it doesn't miss those activated events. All right, so and then there's this fatal exception error. This one must create the cron folder. Yeah. And the alias to it. And then you have auxiliary. Yeah, as I said, so these are just helper functions like create alias, compare string, like to upper, that kind of stuff. And then these are A events. So, but if you look at the, it came with a nice help file. That was sort of this. So they had these cool README files with the Mac where you could embed some graphics. So this kind of repeats what the online help does. Problem solving. Make sure your format matches. You can place any characters. Okay, yeah. So that's Cron Manager, and it was a helpful little utility that ran in the background. It did not take up a lot of resources, but it really helped me understand a little bit more how running multiple things at the same time, because Cron Manager obviously had to run in the background. Nicely integrated in that you just needed this let me turn it back on. I think I must have turned it off. Yeah. So again, this will just run every minute. It will launch that hello command shell script and for the greeting, right? Which is if I click this by hand, you can see it does it, but it does it again. So that was Cron Manager. Again, it was well received and it was pretty inexpensive, and a lot of times I would package it with anything else that I wrote. But it was my journey on learning better learning about the kernel on the Macintosh operating system to help me hack it, which I eventually did, and I'll do that video next week. So I'll end here on Celebrating Mac Marcintosh. Until then, stay safe.